Hey, what's up? In a previous video, I talked a little bit about scriptable variables and showed how they can be used to uh, connect objects in Unity without them actually relying on each other. So we had a pursuit target, which is a transform, and that's stored as an asset. And then our pursuit cube um, prefab has that target in here, and it follows it, and the sphere has a script on it that will initialize its transform as the pursuit target. So that's really all we have so far, but I wanted to show events, how scriptable objects can be used as events. And it's really cool. As soon as you kind of use variables and events, it opens up a lot of possibilities for hooking up things to happen very easily with very little amount of scripting, and it's pretty cool. So what I want to have happen is I want the cube to be able to get kind of blasted back from the sphere when an event happens. So imagining if there might be an explosion, or this might be a game where kind of like Geometry Wars, where you might have a bomb that you can periodically you're able to kind of explode to keep the pursuers back. So I want to show how we can use scriptable objects to set that up. And so let's first look at the script for the event. So the script is just a game event, is a scriptable object, and it just stores a list of game event listeners, and when its raise function is called, it calls the on event raised function of each one of its listeners. So these game event listeners are mono behavior scripts that are attached to other objects, and then they will say, I want to kind of subscribe to this event, and when that event is raised, then I will perform some sort of action. So that's the game event, and then the listener is here. It has a game event, which that's the event that I'm responding to, and it also has this Unity event, which is a Unity built-in component that really is just a function call, and we'll see how to hook those up. And by the way, all of this is taken from many talks on scriptable objects that were done through Unite conferences and such. So I'll link some of those videos in the description so that you can see, like, a more extended version of it, because I'm just trying to do something quick to show how useful they are going to be, at least for our project. So yeah, we have an event and a listener. So that all you need to do is to create kind of a meaningful event to respond to, and you do that by creating just like a scriptable object. You create an asset. So let's call this blast. So this is an event that will get fired, and so on our pursuit cube, we will add one of those mono behavior scripts, that game event listener, and we want to listen for that blast event. So now I'll hear about it, but what do I want to do when that happens? So I want to get blasted, obviously. So in here, all this does is really basic. It just puts some explosion force on it based on the blast origin. So this is another use of a transform variable, which is actually, it should be the pursuit target. So the same target that the object is going to pursue after, then I'm going to use that as the transform variable when we hook this up. So I'll just go ahead and put that on the cube. And I want, again, it to get the same pursuit target that I'm trying to get at. And we'll give it kind of a force. And so the get blasted, it's got the function that actually applies the force. So that's where the Unity event actually comes in to play here, where we're just going to give myself as the object, and I'm going to call on that get blasted function or script. We're going to call the blast away function. So right away, I only did a few lines of code, and I did not connect. Like, I can apply this prefab, this cube. It does not rely on any other game objects. It just relies on these assets, the target and this event. So I can emit that target event from anywhere. I'm sorry, or change the target from anywhere. I can emit the event from anywhere, and this will get it. So now that I have one, I can just kind of put as many of them in as I want, and I don't have to set them all up because they're all already done as prefabs. So the cool thing about I did a custom inspector just to call the raise event of the game event, just to raise this, so that even without something in the scene firing the event, I can just select this and click raise. So you can see it's doing it, but the objects are still, it's kind of blasting them away, but the objects are still trying to get at it, which, I mean, it works. But say I wanted to disable the movement as soon as it gets blasted away, like as if it was maybe being killed. So that would be pretty easy. We can so the cube would have to have some sort of behavior to disable this follow transform script, which, so say I blast away a few times, and I don't want this one after it gets blasted, I don't want it to follow anymore, so I would have to disable that one's script. So I guess that's kind of the behavior that I want to do. I'll just disable that pursuit script as soon as it gets blasted. So I'll create, I have this pursuit behavior script that just has a function that enables or disables follow. So and it relies on that follow transform. So I'll just put that on here, and so when the blast happens, I'm just going to add another response. So I'm going to blast away, but I'm also going to, I'm sorry, that's not right. Which one am I? I want to call behavior set to follow false. So I don't want it to follow anymore after it gets set. So now they should all be like that. And I can have them go. And then maybe let's set the blast force up a little bit. So when it gets blasted, they should all just fly away and then stop. So it was pretty easy setup to do that. And nothing is connected to anything else, right? Except for these, the assets, and the events. So I could use this cube in a brand new scene with nothing else. I just have the cube here, and I can fire this event by anything, and I can change these targets. So, yep, that's it for events, and they're used a lot in our situation when it comes to game state, with changing between, say, a main menu state and going to the actual game. So that's what, if we have, there's a lot of listeners for listening for many events that are happening. It can really control most of the flow of the game using these events. So within this folder, this game folder, is where I'm collecting the created assets. These are all scriptable objects that are either variables or events or enum values, which are just really, it's just like a blank scriptable object that pretty much for comparison purposes, or even a configuration like this to configure these are all, but this is particular or specific to our game. Everything inside the game folder. The scripts that define the objects are in the scriptables folder within the scripts folder. So all of these define either a behavior of a scriptable object, or a related behavior of a scriptable object, or an actual scriptable object. So yeah, the state of the game is managed by that. So right now I've got a main menu state and customized character state, and obviously the play state, and you can move back and forth between those states just using those events. So within the play state, even I can go to an options menu state, and then I can go to a customized state and come back. In the same way, we can go from the main menu, and I can go into that customized state. So I didn't have to do any extra coding to do any of this. All of this hooked up as soon as I had those events, as just created the event assets and hooked them up using a state manager object, scriptable object. So I have this state system, which all it really does is it sees the changes in, if I'm entering or leaving a state, then it fires off events. So if I'm entering the main menu state, then it fires all these events. If I'm leaving the customization state, it fires these events. So it makes it very easy for me to just add an event, using this create game event thing. That'll create an asset, and then I could just drag and drop that asset onto here. So when I want to have something else happen when I enter a racing state, then that game event will get fired, and then any game objects that subscribe to that game event would be fired. Their functions would be called. So it's really, really cool. I hope this helps, and we can talk about it more in the coming weeks. Thanks much.